What is up, everybody? We're on day 63 of our Bible in a Year series, and we are finishing up the book of Deuteronomy today. We're going to hit 4 chapters, 31, 32, 33, and 34. So I'm going to try to not stop as much because they're not super short, and I don't want this video to be super long. So jump straight into it. Before we do, real quick, we are reading out of the CSB. That's the Christian Standard Bible. If you're interested, if you like this translation that you're hearing, I have a link for that in the description, as well as a video going over the specific Bible there. It's the Apologetics Study Bible, CSB translation. Phenomenal resource. Absolutely love it. It is actually it's on my kitchen table, but it is the translation I use in a lot of my personal studies. I really enjoy it, and the apologetics notes and things in there are phenomenal as well. So without any further ado, let's jump straight in. Deuteronomy 31. Then Moses continued to speak these words to all Israel, saying, I am now 120 years old. I can no longer act as your leader. The Lord has told me you will not cross the Jordan. The Lord your God is the one who will cross ahead of you. He will destroy these nations before you, and you will drive them out. Joshua is the one who will cross ahead of you, as the Lord has said. The Lord will deal with them as he did Sihon and Og, the kings of the Amorites in their land when he destroyed them. The Lord will deliver them over to you, and you must do them exactly as I have commanded you. Be strong and courageous. Listen to that. Be strong and courageous. That's going to come into play later. Don't be terrified or afraid of them, for the Lord your God is the one who will go with you. He will not leave you or abandon you. What we saw said, to be strong and courageous. Now, a lot of people have heard that, but it's from the next book coming up, Joshua. And that is a theme, especially in the first chapter-ish of Joshua, that comes up a lot. So this is kind of setting the stage. We've moved on a little bit from preparation and trying to get Israel to remember everything that God has done. And now our focus is really shifting on what is coming, what's next. So let's go. Moses then summoned Joshua and said to him, in the sight of all Israel, be strong and courageous, for you will go with this people into the land the Lord swore to give to their ancestors. You will enable them to take possession of it. The Lord is the one who will go before you. He will be with you. He will not leave you or abandon you. Do not be afraid or discouraged. Moses wrote down this law and gave it to the priests, the sons of Levi, who carried the ark of the Lord's covenant, and to all the elders of Israel. Moses commanded them at the end of every 7 years, at the appointed time in the year of debt cancellation, during the festival of shelters, when all Israel assembles in the presence of the Lord your God, at the place he chooses, you are to read this law aloud before all Israel. Gather the people, men, women, dependents and the resident aliens within your city gates, so that they may listen and learn to fear the Lord your God, and be careful to follow all the words of this law. Then their children who do not know the law will listen and learn to fear the Lord your God as long as you live in the land you are crossing the Jordan to possess. The Lord said to Moses, the time of your death is now approaching. Call Joshua and present yourselves at the tent of meeting, so that I may commission him. When Moses and Joshua went and presented themselves at the tent of meeting, the Lord appeared at the tent in a pillar of cloud, and the cloud stood at the entrance of the tent. The Lord said to Moses, you are about to rest with your ancestors, and these people will soon prostitute themselves with the foreign gods of the land they are entering. They will abandon me and break the covenant I have made with them. My anger will burn against them on that day. I will abandon them and hide my face from them, so that they will become easy prey. Many troubles and afflictions will come to them. On that day they will say, haven't these troubles come to us because our God is no longer with us? I will certainly hide my face on that day because of all the evil they have done by turning to other gods. Therefore, write down this song for yourselves and teach it to the Israelites. Have them sing it, so that this song may be a witness for me against the Israelites. When I bring them into the land I swore to give their ancestors, a land flowing with milk and honey, they will eat their fill and prosper. They will turn to other gods and worship them, despising me and breaking my covenant. And when many troubles and afflictions come to them, this song will testify against them, because their descendants will not have forgotten it. For I know what they are prone to do, even before I bring them into the land I swore to give them. So Moses wrote down this song on that day and taught it to the Israelites. The Lord commissioned Joshua, son of Nun, be strong and courageous, for you will bring the Israelites into the land I swore to them, and I will be with you. When Moses had finished writing down on a scroll every single word of this law, he commanded the Levites who carried the ark of the Lord's covenant, take this book of the law and place it beside the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, so that it may remain there as a witness against you. For I know how rebellious and stiff-necked you are. If you are rebelling against the Lord now, while I am still alive, how much more will you rebel after I am dead? Assemble all your tribal leaders and officers before me, so that I may speak these words directly to them and call heaven and earth as witnesses against them. For I know that after my death you will become completely corrupt and turn from the path I have commanded you. Disaster will come to you in the future, because you will do what is evil in the Lord's sight, angering him with what your hands have made. Then Moses recited aloud every single word of this song to the entire assembly of Israel. So kind of discouraging a little bit, you know. Moses has been doing this, trying to remind them and trying to instruct them on why they need to listen, why they need to follow what God has given them, and it just seems like it's not going to matter. Like, God has said he knows after Moses dies that they're going to still fall away into this. So I imagine, it's for Moses, it's there has to be an element of it being sweet, because he is getting to go be with God, but also he knows that Israel's going to fall away. So it's kind of, bittersweet. Okay, this is the song that Moses had for them. Pay attention, heavens, and I will speak. Listen, earth, to the words from my mouth. Let my teaching fall like rain, and my sword settle like dew, like gentle rain on new grass and showers on tender plants. For I will proclaim the Lord's name, declare the greatness of our God, the rock, and his work is perfect. All his ways are just, a faithful God without bias. He is righteous and true. His people have acted corruptly toward him. This is their defect. They are not his children, but a devious and crooked generation. This is how you repay the Lord, you foolish and senseless people. Isn't he your father and creator? Didn't he make you sustain? Didn't he make you and sustain you? Remember the days of old. Consider the years of past generations. Ask your father, and he will tell you, your elders, and they will teach you, when the Most High gave the nations their inheritance and divided the human race. He set the boundaries of the peoples according to the number of the people of Israel. But the Lord's portion is his people, Jacob his own inheritance. He found him in a desolate land, in a barren, howling wilderness. He surrounded him, cared for him, and protected him as the pupil of his eye. He watches over his nest like an eagle and hovers over his young. He spreads his wings, catches him, and carries him on his feathers. The Lord alone led him with no help from a foreign god. He made him ride on the heights of the land and eat the produce of the field. He nourished him with honey from the rock and oil from the flinty rock, curds from the herd and milk from the flock, with the fat of lambs, rams in Bashan, and goats with the choicest grains of wheat. You drank from wine of the finest grapes. Then Jeshurun became fat and rebelled. You became fat, bloated, and gorged. He abandoned the God who made him and scorned the rock of his salvation. They provoked his jealousy with different gods. They enraged him with detestable practices. They sacrificed to demons, not God, to gods they had not known, new gods that had just arrived, which your ancestors did not fear. You ignored the rock who gave you birth. You forgot the God who gave birth to you. When the Lord saw this, he despised them. Angered by his sons and daughters, he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what will become of them. They are a perverse generation, unfaithful children. They have provoked my jealousy with what is not God. They have enraged me with their worthless idols, so I will provoke their jealousy with what is not a people. I will enrage them with a foolish nation, for fire has been kindled because of my anger, and burns to the depths of Sheol. It devours the land and its produce, and scorches the foundations of the mountains. While I will pile disasters on them, I will use up my arrows against them. They will be weak from hunger, ravaged by pestilence and bitter plague. I will unleash on them wild beasts with fangs, as well as venomous snakes that slither in the dust. Outside the sword will take their children, and inside there will be terror. The young man and the young woman will be killed. The infant and gray-haired man, I would have said, I will cut them into pieces and blot out the memory of them from mankind. If I had not feared provocation from the enemy, or feared these foes might misunderstand and say, our own hand has prevailed. It wasn't the Lord who did all this. Israel is a nation lacking sense, with no understanding at all. If only they were wise, they would comprehend this. They would understand their fate. How could one pursue 1,000 or two put 10,000 to flight, unless their rock had sold them, unless the Lord had given them up? But their rock is not like our rock, as even our enemies concede. For their vine is from the vine of Sodom and from the fields of Gomorrah. Their grapes are poisonous, their clusters are bitter, their wine is serpent's venom, the deadly poison of cobras. It is not stored up with me, sealed up in my vaults. Vengeance and retribution belong to me. In time their foot will slip, for their day of disaster is near, and their doom is coming quickly. The Lord will indeed vindicate his people and have compassion on his servants. When he sees that their strength is gone and no one is left, slave or free, he will say, where are their gods, the rock they found refuge in, who ate the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their offerings? Let them rise up and help you. Let it be a shelter for you. See now that I am alone. See now that I alone am he. There is no God but me. I bring death and I give life. I wound and I heal. No one can rescue anyone from my power. I raise my hand to heaven and declare, as surely as I live forever, when I sharpen my flashing sword and my hand takes hold of judgment, I will take vengeance on my adversaries and repay those who hate me. I will make my arrows drunk with blood, while my sword devours flesh, the blood of the slain and the captives, the heads of the enemy leaders. Rejoice, your nations, concerning this people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants. He will take vengeance on his adversaries. He will purify his land and his people. Moses came with Joshua, son of Nun, and recited all the words of this song in the presence of the people. That is a heck of a song. Verse 45. After Moses finished reciting all these words to all Israel, he said to them, take to heart all these words I am giving as a warning to you today. so that you may command your children to follow all the words of this law carefully, for they are not meaningless words to you, but they are your life. And by them you will live long in the land you are crossing the Jordan to possess. On that same day, the Lord spoke to Moses, "Go up Mount Nebo, and in the Abiram range in the land of Moab, across from Jericho, and view the land of Canaan I am giving the Israelites as a possession. Then you will die on the mountain that you go up, and you will be gathered with your people, just as your brother Aaron died on Mount Hor and was gathered to his people. For both of you broke faith with me among the Israelites at the waters of Meribah Kadesh in the wilderness of Zin by failing to treat me as holy in their presence. Although from a distance you will view the land that I am giving the Israelites, you will not go there." Chapter 33. This is the blessing that Moses, the man of God, gave the Israelites before his death. He said, "The Lord came from Sinai and appeared to them for Seir. He shone on them from Mount Paran. He came with 10,000 holy ones, with lightning from his right hand for them. Indeed, he loves people. All your holy ones are in your hand, and they assemble at your feet. Each receives your words. Moses gave us instructions, a possession for the assembly of Jacob. So he became king of Jerusalem. When the leaders of the people gathered with the tribes of Israel, let Reuben live and not die, though his people become few." Right under that, I had Judah, and I mixed the two together. He said this about Judah: "Lord, hear Judah's cry and bring him to his people. He fights for his cause with his own words, but may you help against his foes." He said about Levi, "Your Thummim and Urim belong to your faithful one. You tested him at Manasseh and contended with him at the waters of Meribah." He said about his father and mother, "I do not regard them." He disregarded his brothers and didn't acknowledge his sons, for they kept your word and maintained your covenant. They will teach your ordinances to Jacob and your instruction to Israel. They will set incense before you and whole burnt offerings on your altar. Lord, bless his possession and accept the work of his hand. Break the back of his adversaries and enemies so that they cannot rise against him." He said about Benjamin, "The Lord's beloved rests securely on him. He shields him all day long, and he rests on his shoulders." He said about Joseph, "May his land be blessed by the Lord with the dew of heaven's bounty and the watery depths that lie beneath, with the bountiful harvest from the sun and the abundant yields of the season, with the best produce of the ancient mountains and the bounty of eternal hills, with the choice gifts of the land and everything in it, and with the favor of him who appeared in the burning bush. May these rest on the head of Joseph, on the brow of the prince of his brothers. His firstborn bull has splendor and horns like those of wild ox. He gores all the people with them at the ends of the earth. Such are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and such are the thousands of Manasseh." He said about Zebulun, "Rejoice, Zebulun, in your journeys, and Issachar in your tents." They summon the peoples to the mountain. Then they offer acceptable sacrifices, for they draw from the wealth of the seas, and are hidden treasures of the sand. He said about Gad, "The one who his territory will be blessed. He lies down like a lion and tears off an arm or even a head. He chose the best part for himself because a ruler's portion was assigned there for him. He came with the leaders of the people. He carried out the Lord's justice and his ordinance for Israel." He had said about Dan, "Dan is a young lion leaping out of Bashan." He said about Naphtali, enjoying approval, full of the Lord's blessing, take possession of the west and the south. He said about Asher, "May Asher be the most blessed of the sons. May he be most favored among his brothers, and dip his foot in olive oil. May the bolts of your gate be iron and bronze, and your strength last as long as you live. There is none like the God of Jeshurun, who rides the heavens to your aid. The clouds in his majesty, the God of old is dwelling place, and underneath are the everlasting arms. He drives out the enemy before and commands destroy. So Israel dwells securely, Jacob lives untroubled in a land of whole grain and new wine. Even his skies drip with dew. How happy are you, Israel? Who is like you? A people saved by the Lord. He is the shield that protects you, the sword you boast in. Your enemies will cringe before you, and he will tread on their backs. Chapter 34. This is it. Okay. Verse 1. Then Moses went up from the plains of Moab to Mount Nebo to the top of Pisgah, which faces Jericho, and the Lord showed him all the land, Gilead as far as Dan, all of Naphtali, the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, all the land of Judah as far as the Mediterranean Sea, the Negev and the plain, the valley of Jericho, the city of palms as far as Zoar. The Lord then said to him, this is the land I promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I will give it to your descendants. I have let you see it with your own eyes, but you will not cross into it. So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, according to the Lord's word. He buried him in the valley in the land of Moab, facing Beth Peor, and no one to this day knows where his grave is. Moses was 120 years old when he died. His eyes were not weak, and his vitality had not left him. The Israelites wept for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days. Then the days of weeping and mourning for Moses came to an end. Joshua, son of Nun, was filled with the spirit of wisdom, because Moses had laid his hands on him. So the Israelites obeyed him and did as the Lord had commanded Moses. No prophet has arisen again in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. He was unparalleled for all the signs and wonders the Lord sent him to do against the land of Egypt, to Pharaoh, to all his officials, and to all his land, and for the mighty acts of power and terrifying deeds that Moses performed in the sight of Israel. Okay. That is it for our reading. And we are already pushing it on time, so I'm going to jump into our questions. So, question 1. How does Moses' encouragement to Joshua be strong and courageous in Deuteronomy 31 inspire us when we face transitions or uncertainties in our own lives? Again, so this ties into this idea of trusting God, having faith, and remembering what God has already done, right? So if you are recalling what God has already done, then it's going to be easier to stick it out. Being able to draw back on what God has already done is a truly, truly remarkable ability. Question 2. The song in chapter 32 serves as both a warning and a testimony. What role do you think remembering God's history with us plays in staying faithful? We've talked about this before. Again, understanding what God has already done and what he can and will do is important. Even when you're looking at how Israel had the blessing removed from them. They had a curse put on them. it's still seeing like God's keeping his promises. Even when he does the negative there, Israel had strayed away. Uh, Israel had left God, and God told them if they left, if they did this, then this would be the consequences. And God is keeping his word. Even in the unpleasant stuff, God is keeping his word. Question 3. Moses' death and his view of the promised land from afar, chapter 34, are bittersweet. What can we learn from his life about obedience, trust, and unfinished journeys? Well, he's not trying to force the idea. He's not trying to force God to let him go to the promised land. He's accepted that God has made his decision. He's accepted that he messed up, he did wrong, and there are consequences for that. And I think owning up to that is a huge, huge deal in our lives today. Both believers and non-believers. I think it is just a huge deal to be able to own up to what you've done. But what we see here, Moses is not trying to force the issue because he already knows, hey, I did this. It was wrong. This is the punishment. So having a proper understanding there, I think helps us to trust God through the difficult times too, and trust God through testing that may show up. So that is it for today. And took us 63 days, but we finished first 5 books of the Bible. We're done with Deuteronomy. Tomorrow, we're going to be jumping into Joshua, and it is going to get back to the kind of fast-paced battle type stuff pretty early on. So if that interests you, come back tomorrow. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, all that jazz. I enjoy hearing from people. I enjoy reading comments, getting messages, things like that. So if there's anything like that you want to say, go ahead and drop it in the comments or send a message. Tomorrow we'll be going into Joshua. If this has been a blessing to you, don't hesitate. Consider passing it on to somebody else. Word of mouth is the best way that podcasts spread. So if this has been a blessing to you, you want to pass it on to someone else, and maybe it can be a blessing to them as well. Please feel free to do so. We want to continue to grow. So appreciate all that. And tomorrow we'll be getting into Joshua. God bless.